The elevator doors slid open on the 32nd floor, and Naomi Clark stepped out too fast, nearly tripping as the wheels of her suitcase caught the edge of the threshold. Her heart was already racing before she fully entered the hallway. She didn't slow down. She didn't look around. She moved like someone who had learned the hard way that hesitation could cost her everything. Her fingers were numb as she dragged the suitcase behind her, the sound of its wheels echoing too loudly in the quiet corridor. Every step felt exposed. Every breath felt borrowed. She tightened her grip on the strap of her shoulder bag and forced herself to keep walking, even as her pulse hammered in her ears. 3 days earlier, she had walked into her apartment and found her ex-boyfriend, David, sitting on her bed with her laptop open in front of him. She hadn't screamed. She hadn't spoken. She had just stood there frozen as he scrolled through her private emails with casual confidence, like he owned them, like he owned her. He had installed tracking software on her phone. He had accessed her bank accounts. He had taken screenshots of her transactions and forwarded them to himself. And when she demanded to know what he thought he was doing, he had leaned back against the headboard, smiled slowly, and said the words that still rang in her head now as she walked down this unfamiliar hallway. "You don't leave me. You don't disappear. You belong to me." That was the moment Naomi ran. Besties, before we continue, let me ask you a question. Have you subscribed to our channel? If not, please do so to help this channel build a strong community and tell us where you are watching from in the comments section. Naomi reached her door, apartment 32C, and fumbled for her keys. Her hands were shaking so badly she dropped them once, then again. She forced herself to breathe. In, out, slowly. She reminded herself that she was safe, that she had done everything right. She had spent 6 months planning this escape in silence. A hidden savings account. A burner phone she kept buried in her gym locker. Articles bookmarked under innocent names. Lists memorized and then deleted. She had learned how to vanish without leaving a digital trail. No forwarding address, no social media, no shared contacts, cash payments, a building with private security and restricted access, a place so far outside her old life that it barely felt real. She unlocked the door and stepped inside, closing it quickly behind her. Only then did she let herself exhale. The apartment was clean, modern, and far too expensive for someone like her. Pale walls, floor-to-ceiling windows, silence so complete it felt unnatural. Naomi leaned her back against the door and closed her eyes, trying to slow her breathing. This was supposed to be her hiding place, her reset, her chance to breathe without fear. She didn't know yet that she had moved, next door to someone who noticed everything. When she opened her eyes and turned to set her bag down, a sound outside made her freeze. A door opening, footsteps, calm, unhurried. She waited, her body instinctively going still. Then, against her better judgment, she cracked the door open just enough to look. A man stood in the hallway across from her, locking the door to apartment 32B. He was tall, broad-shouldered, dressed in dark slacks and a fitted jacket that looked tailored rather than trendy. His movements were controlled, precise, like someone who never wasted energy. His hair was neatly styled, his posture straight without being stiff. But it wasn't his appearance that made Naomi's stomach twist. It was the way he scanned the hallway before turning, the way his eyes moved with quiet calculation, taking in exits, reflections, angles. The way his presence seemed to settle into the space instead of merely occupying it. When his gaze landed on her, it felt deliberate. Not surprised, not curious. Aware. She felt it immediately, that sensation of being seen too clearly. Her fingers tightened on the edge of the door. "New neighbor," he said calmly. His voice was low, steady, with a faint accent she couldn't place. It wasn't friendly. It wasn't hostile. It was observant. Naomi swallowed, just moved in. He nodded once, his eyes flicking briefly to the suitcase behind her, the tension in her shoulders, the way she kept her body angled toward the door like she was ready to retreat at any moment. "Welcome," he said. That was it, no smile, no questions, no attempt to extend the conversation. She muttered a quick thank you and closed the door, locking it with more force than necessary. Her heart was pounding again, but this time it wasn't just fear. It was confusion. She didn't know why that brief interaction had unsettled her so deeply. She had lived around strangers her entire life. Men didn't scare her automatically. David scared her. And yet, the man next door made her feel exposed in a way she couldn't explain. She spent the rest of the evening unpacking only what she needed: clothes, toiletries, her laptop, the bare minimum. She kept the lights low. She double-checked the locks. She slept on top of the covers with her phone clutched in her hand, the burner phone hidden beneath the pillow. Across the hall, in apartment 32B, Adrian Park stood at his window overlooking the city. He had already memorized the security layout of the floor. Cameras, blind spots, response times. He did it automatically, the way other people checked the weather. He wasn't supposed to notice neighbors. He made a point of not noticing people unless they were a threat or an asset. But the woman who had moved in next door didn't fit neatly into either category. She moved like someone under pressure. Her fear wasn't dramatic, it was disciplined, contained. That kind of fear came from experience. Adrian replayed the image of her trembling hands, the way she had kept her body half-turned toward escape, the faint discoloration around her wrist that her sleeve had almost hidden. Almost. He didn't speculate, he didn't assume. He made a call. "Run a background check," he said quietly when his lieutenant answered. "New tenant next door, Naomi Clark. I want everything you can find." There was a pause, that fast. "Yes." No further questions were asked. Adrian ended the call and looked back out at the city, his reflection faint in the glass. Someone had hurt her. And someone like that didn't get to operate unnoticed in his territory. Naomi woke just before dawn, her body snapping awake as if someone had shaken her. For a few disoriented seconds, she didn't know where she was. The unfamiliar ceiling, the quiet, the absence of someone else breathing beside her. Then memory rushed in all at once. She was alone, she was hidden. David wasn't here. Her chest loosened slightly, though the tension never fully left. It never did anymore. She sat up and checked her phone. No notifications, no missed calls, nothing suspicious. Still. She scanned the apartment before standing, every corner, every shadow. When she was satisfied nothing had changed overnight, she moved to the kitchen and made coffee, her hands steady now but her mind still racing. By mid-morning, she was logged into her laptop, working on a branding project she had nearly lost when David started showing up unannounced at her client meetings months earlier. Back then, she had convinced herself it was romantic, supportive. She could still hear his voice, teasing and warm on the surface, sharp underneath. "I just want to be involved in your life." Now she knew better. Her phone vibrated suddenly on the counter, and Naomi flinched hard enough to remember the sting in her wrist. She stared at the screen, her pulse climbing. Unknown number. She didn't answer. She never answered unknown numbers anymore. She waited until it stopped vibrating, then blocked it immediately. She told herself it was nothing, a wrong number, a spam call, but the familiar knot tightened in her stomach anyway. Across the hall, Adrian was already dressed, reviewing documents on his tablet as his security team updated him in quiet, clipped messages. "She's clean," his lieutenant said through the earpiece. "No criminal history, freelance marketing consultant, works mostly remote, no close family." "Relationships?" Adrian asked. "One significant ex, David Harlow, 32, self-employed. History is questionable." Adrian stopped walking. "Explain." "2 previous restraining orders, both expired, both filed by former girlfriends. No convictions, but a pattern. Financial irregularities tied to shell accounts. Light extortion rumors out of Jersey." Adrian's jaw tightened slightly. "Current location?" "Unknown. He went quiet 3 days ago." Adrian didn't respond immediately. He looked down the hallway toward Naomi's door, still closed, still silent. "Keep watching," he said, quietly. That evening, Naomi burned dinner. It was a stupid mistake, one she wouldn't normally make, but exhaustion had crept in, the kind that settled deep in her bones after weeks of running on adrenaline. She forgot the pan on the stove, lost in thought, until smoke curled toward the ceiling and the alarm exploded into sound. She panicked. Her heart slammed against her ribs as she waved a towel at the smoke detector, coughing, tears springing to her eyes. She fumbled for the stove controls, unfamiliar with the layout, her movements clumsy with fear. The knock came hard and fast. Naomi froze. Her first thought was David. Her second was that she had made a terrible mistake coming here. Another knock, firmer this time. She forced herself to move, her legs heavy as she approached the door. She checked the peephole. Adrian stood outside, holding a small fire extinguisher. Relief and embarrassment crashed into her at the same time. She opened the door, the alarm still screaming behind her. "May I?" he asked, already stepping inside when she nodded. He moved efficiently, turning off the stove, opening the windows, silencing the alarm with practiced ease. The smoke cleared quickly. Naomi stood frozen near the counter, her arms wrapped around herself. "Thank you," she said quietly. He glanced at her, his expression unreadable. "You should replace the detector batteries. This building's sensors are sensitive." She nodded. "I will." He paused at the door, then turned back. "Adrian." "Naomi." The way he looked at her then made her stomach twist. Not hunger, not possession. Recognition. He left without another word. Naomi locked the door behind him and slid down against it, her knees giving out. Her hands were shaking again, but for the first time since she arrived, it wasn't only fear driving it. It was something dangerously close to feeling seen. The email arrived 2 days later. It came to an address she had created specifically for new clients, one she had never shared publicly, one she had only sent to 3 people. Her blood went cold. She read the first line. "Did you really think I wouldn't find you?" Naomi stared at the screen, her fingers trembling. New city, new building, same voice. "You always underestimate me, Naomi. That was your problem. You think you can erase 3 years like they didn't happen. You think deleting accounts means disappearing. It doesn't." She scrolled. "I know you're in New York, Upper East Side if I had to guess. You always liked feeling important. Don't worry, I'll see you soon." "Day." She slammed the laptop shut, her breathing shallow and fast. Her mind raced, replaying every step she had taken, every precaution she had followed. How? She hadn't slept that night, or the next. Adrian noticed immediately. He saw it in the way she startled when the elevator chimed, in the way she checked her reflection in mirrored surfaces like she was searching for someone behind her, in the way she avoided eye contact, her body coiled tight with anticipation. That afternoon, his security feed flagged a vehicle parked across the street longer than normal. Dark sedan, New Jersey plates. Adrian had the information pulled within minutes. The car was registered to a company that didn't exist. He made a call. "I want eyes on David Harlow," he said calmly. "Discreet. If he's in the city, I want to know before he gets close." That evening, Naomi found a small package outside her door. She stood staring at it for a full minute before picking it up, every nerve screaming caution. She brought it inside carefully, locking the door behind her. Inside was a personal safety alarm, sleek, lightweight, and a note. "For your walks, stay alert. A." Naomi sank onto the couch, the tension in her chest loosening just enough to let her breathe. Someone was paying attention. Someone was watching out for her. And for the first time since she ran, she slept through the night. Naomi tried to convince herself that the safety alarm was just a precaution, a thoughtful gesture, nothing more. But every time her fingers brushed against it in her pocket, she felt the quiet reassurance of not being completely alone. She kept working. She kept walking. She kept pretending that her life wasn't tightening around a single, dangerous point. 2 weeks passed. She started speaking to the building concierge, a woman named Alina who had a warm smile and a habit of leaning in when she talked, as if every conversation was a shared secret. Naomi found herself lingering at the desk longer than necessary, grateful for the normalcy. One morning, as Naomi signed for a package, Alina lowered her voice. "You live next to Mr. Park, right?" Naomi hesitated. Adrian. Elena nodded slowly. Very private man, very powerful, owns half the logistics companies that keep this city running if rumors are true. Naomi forced a small smile. He seems quiet. Elena chuckled softly. That's one word for it. People say he's connected, not the kind of man you cross. She straightened, her tone shifting. But he's always been respectful to staff, generous too. That counts for something. Naomi thanked her and walked away, her thoughts spiraling. Connected. That night, curiosity won. She sat at her laptop with a glass of wine she barely tasted and typed Adrian Park's name into the search bar. The surface results were impressive. CEO, investor, philanthropist, clean, polished, the kind of man business magazines admired. But deeper searches told a different story. Forums, foreign articles, whispers threaded through comment sections. His father's name appeared often, a powerful figure overseas, allegations never proven, rivals ruined, operations that expanded too fast to be coincidence. Naomi closed the laptop, her heart racing. The man who had given her a safety alarm, the man who had calmly handled her panic, the man who watched her like he already knew what she was afraid of. Dangerous didn't begin to cover it. The next time she saw Adrian in the hallway, she barely acknowledged him. She kept her head down, her steps quick. He noticed. When the elevator doors closed behind them, sealing them into a quiet box of mirrored walls, Adrian spoke. You looked me up. Naomi stiffened. I don't know what you're talking about. You do, he said evenly, and it scared you. She stared straight ahead. People talk. Yes, he agreed, they do. The elevator descended in silence. Naomi's pulse pounded so loudly she was sure he could hear it. Are you going to hurt me? She asked suddenly, the words escaping before she could stop them. Adrian turned to face her fully. His expression didn't change, but something in his eyes sharpened. No, he said, and I don't allow people who hurt women to operate near me. The doors opened. He stepped out, then paused. Your ex hired someone to follow you, he added casually. That problem has been handled. Naomi's breath caught. What? He won't bother you, Adrian said. Not tonight. He walked away. 2 days later, Naomi saw the news. A private investigator had been arrested for illegal surveillance and stalking. The report mentioned multiple victims. One photograph blurred on the screen made Naomi's knees weak. It was her. Her building, her entrance, her life. She watched the segment twice, her hands shaking. Adrian hadn't exaggerated. He had intervened. That evening, Naomi stood outside his door for a long time before knocking. Adrian opened it almost immediately. Come in, he said quietly. His apartment was larger than hers, immaculate without being cold. Minimal, intentional. Her eyes were drawn to a small shelf holding 3 framed photos. A woman with kind eyes, a stern man, a smiling teenage girl. My family, Adrian said when he noticed her staring. My sister. What happened to her? Naomi asked softly. He was silent for a moment. She trusted the wrong man. The words landed heavy between them. She tried to leave, Adrian continued. He wouldn't let her. Naomi felt her throat tighten. I'm sorry. So am I, he said. He looked at her then, really looked at her, and the distance between them shifted. I won't let that happen again, he said. Naomi believed him. And that belief terrified her almost as much as it comforted her. Naomi tried to go back to normal after that night, but normal no longer existed in the same way. Knowing that David had been close enough to photograph her building shattered any illusion of safety she had been clinging to. Every sound in the hallway made her flinch. Every unfamiliar face on the street made her heart jump. She kept replaying the news footage in her mind, the grainy image of herself entering the building, unaware she was being watched. She wasn't just being hunted in theory. She had been hunted in reality. Adrian didn't press her. He didn't hover. He didn't show up uninvited. That restraint mattered more than he probably realized. He let her decide when to speak, when to retreat, when to breathe. But he didn't stop watching. His people tracked David's movements with precision. Every credit card swipe, every burner phone activation, every hotel check-in. David wasn't being subtle anymore. He was angry, and angry men made mistakes. 3 weeks after the arrest of the private investigator, Naomi came home to find a delivery waiting at her door. Black roses. 12 of them arranged neatly in a glass vase. No card, no signature. Her hands went numb. David had sent black roses after every argument, every time she tried to assert independence, every time he wanted to remind her that he was still in control. Her phone slipped from her fingers and hit the floor. She didn't scream, she didn't cry. She stood there staring at the flowers, her chest tight, her mind screaming one word over and over. He found me. She picked up her phone and called Adrian without thinking. He answered on the first ring. He knows where I live, she said, her voice breaking despite her effort to keep it steady. He sent flowers, black roses. There was a pause on the line, not surprise, not confusion. I know, Adrian said calmly. He booked a flight this morning. He lands tomorrow. The room tilted. He's coming here, Naomi whispered. Yes. Fear surged, sharp and immediate. What do I do? You listen to me, Adrian said. His voice didn't rise, but there was steel beneath it now. You stay inside. You don't confront him. You don't answer unknown numbers. You don't open the door for anyone but me. Naomi swallowed hard. I don't want to keep running. I know, he said. You won't. That night, Adrian turned the building into a fortress. Additional security appeared at every entrance, seamlessly integrated with the existing staff. New cameras were installed on their floor, invisible unless you knew where to look. Adrian's people rotated shifts in unmarked vehicles nearby. Naomi moved into Adrian's guest room without protest. She packed a small bag, her movements quiet and automatic. She didn't sleep much. On the balcony just before dawn, Naomi stood wrapped in a blanket, staring at the city lights fading into morning. Adrian joined her silently, handing her a cup of tea. You don't have to be strong tonight, he said quietly. She let out a shaky breath. I'm tired of being afraid. He nodded. So am I. Later that afternoon, David made his mistake. He tried to lure her out. The message came from a number that mimicked a police alert system, warning residents of a gas leak and instructing immediate evacuation. Naomi stared at it, her heart racing, but something felt off. She showed Adrian. He looked at the screen once. It's fake. How do you know? Because I would have known first. David arrived near the building just after sunset. He didn't make it inside. Adrian's people intercepted him in an alley 2 blocks away, the confrontation swift and silent. David struggled, cursing, threatening, insisting he knew his rights. Adrian stepped forward when David was pinned against the brick wall. You don't, Adrian said calmly. David laughed harshly. You think you scare me? You're just another rich man playing hero. Adrian leaned in, his voice low. I know about the other women. David froze. I know about the restraining orders, the money you skimmed, the threats you never thought anyone recorded. I know everything. David's bravado cracked. You don't know who you're dealing with. I do, Adrian said, and you made the mistake of thinking she was alone. He straightened. You leave this city tonight. You don't contact her again. If you do, I release everything. David's face drained of color. You can't. I already have, Adrian interrupted. Authorities, journalists, lawyers, they're waiting. David nodded frantically. I'll go, I swear. Run, Adrian said. David didn't hesitate. In the weeks that followed, the pressure finally eased. David disappeared from New York. Investigations opened quietly. 2 former partners turned on him. 2 former girlfriends came forward. Naomi began to sleep again. She laughed more. She worked longer hours. She started writing, pouring her experience into words that reached people she had never met. Adrian watched her transform, something inside him shifting as well. One night, she showed up at his door with takeout. I don't want to be afraid anymore, she said. I want to choose something real. He studied her for a long moment. So do I. He kissed her gently, the kind of kiss built on trust rather than urgency. For the first time in a long time, both of them felt like they were stepping into something instead of running away. Time did what fear never allowed Naomi to do. It gave her space. In the weeks after David fled the city, life didn't snap back into place all at once. It unfolded slowly, cautiously, like something fragile being tested for cracks. Naomi still checked locks twice. She still startled at unfamiliar footsteps, but the panic no longer owned her. She was sleeping through the night. That alone felt miraculous. The investigations moved quietly at first, then louder. Anonymous evidence landed in the right hands. Financial records, messages, patterns that could no longer be ignored. David's name appeared in news articles she didn't seek out but couldn't avoid. Fraud, stalking, conspiracy. The words felt surreal when attached to someone who had once told her he loved her. 2 women came forward, then another. Naomi cried when she saw them speak on television, not because it reopened wounds, but because it closed something she had carried alone for too long. She wasn't imagining it. She hadn't exaggerated. What she survived had been real. And it mattered. She poured herself into work with a focus she hadn't felt in years. Clients noticed. Word spread. Projects grew bigger, better. Her confidence returned piece by piece, not borrowed from anyone else but built from the ground up. At night, she wrote. At first, it was just fragments, thoughts she never said out loud, then full posts, stories, advice she wished she had heard sooner. She didn't attach her name, she didn't promote it, but people found it anyway. Messages poured in, women thanking her, men admitting they hadn't recognized their own behavior until reading her words, survivors who finally felt seen. She wasn't just healing anymore. She was helping. Adrian watched it all with quiet admiration. He never pushed, never claimed credit. When she spoke about her growth, her work, her plans, he listened like it mattered because it did. One night, she sat cross-legged on the couch in his living room, laptop balanced on her knees. I want to do more, she said suddenly. Adrian looked up from his phone. More how? I want to build something real, she said. Resources, legal aid, housing, not just words, action. He studied her carefully. That's a big undertaking. I know, she said, but I'm not afraid of big things anymore. He smiled faintly. You shouldn't be. The funding appeared quietly, strategically, no names attached. Naomi knew better than to pretend she didn't know where it came from. She didn't say thank you. She just did the work. 6 months later, Rising Free opened its doors. A small office, a dedicated team, counselors who understood because they had lived it, lawyers who cared, partnerships that grew faster than she expected. Over 200 women found safety in the first year. Naomi stood in the office one evening after everyone had left, staring at the wall where handwritten thank you notes were pinned. She pressed her fingers to her lips, emotions swelling in her chest. Adrian stood behind her, his hand warm at her waist. You built this, he said quietly. She shook her head. We did. Change came for him too, though it was slower, harder, and far more complicated. Adrian didn't dismantle his world overnight. He couldn't. There were obligations, history, consequences that didn't disappear just because someone wanted to be better. But he started. Illicit operations were quietly shut down or sold. Partnerships dissolved. Legal structures replaced shadows. It was dangerous work, and not everyone welcomed it. But for the first time in his life, Adrian was building something that didn't require fear to sustain it. He was choosing a future. 1 year after Naomi moved into that apartment shaking and terrified, she stood on the rooftop at sunset, the city stretching endlessly around her. The air was cool, calm. She thought about the woman she had been that first night, running, hiding, believing survival was the best she could hope for. She smiled softly. Adrian joined her, slipping an arm around her shoulders. What are you thinking? He asked. That I didn't come here to find you, she said. I came here to disappear. And instead, I found myself, she said, and you were just next door, He laughed quietly. Then he turned serious, reaching into his pocket. Naomi felt it before she saw it. Her breath caught. "Marry me," Adrian said simply. She stared at the ring, elegant and understated, chosen with intention rather than flash. Then she looked up at him, tears blurring her vision. "Yes," she said without hesitation. "Yes." When he slid the ring onto her finger, she felt something settle deep inside her. Peace. Below them, the city glowed. Ahead of them stretched a future neither of them had believed possible once. Naomi hadn't moved into that apartment to find love. She had moved in to survive. She had done far more than that. Thank you so much for staying with us until the end of this story. If you enjoyed it, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like this video, and let us know in the comments where you're watching from. Your support helps us keep telling stories like this.